protests that arose because of the outrage over the video.
You're totally correct that they spent 2 weeks telling us this was about a tape and that there was this riot outside the Benghazi consulate, which there wasn't.
Natural protests that arose because of the outrage over the video.
I was in chronic pain, and my family struggling to make ends meet, food and gas prices going up, even keeping my job was iffy. Then I learned about a new miracle drug made in Washington, D.C., Spenditol. Spenditol is Washington's answer to all the painful problems Americans face. How to borrow $800 billion for a stimulus that didn't create jobs or fix the economy? Spenditol.
Spenditol is not for everyone. Side effects may include a mountain of government debt piled on our kids, a sudden loss of freedoms, higher prices for everything, leaving our kids a lesser America than we had. Ask your doctor or congressman if your conscience is strong enough for Spenditol.
And it's so popular in Washington, we have to import trillions more of it from China. Spenditol makes you feel better now and pushes off the really bad stuff till later, for them to deal with.
Call the White House and Congress. Tell them, stop spending it all.
I always loved watching the kids play basketball. I still do, even though things have changed. It's funny, they can't find jobs to get their careers started. And I can't afford to retire. And now we're all living together again. I supported President Obama because he spoke so beautifully. He promised change, but things changed for the worse. Obama started spending like our credit cards have no limit. His healthcare law made health insurance even more expensive. We've had stimulus and bailouts. Obama added almost $16,000 in debt for every American. How will my kids pay that off when they can't even find jobs? Now Obama wants more spending and taxes. That won't fix things. I had so many hopes. Cutting taxes and debt and creating jobs. That's the change we need. Tell President Obama to cut the job-killing debt and support the New Majority Agenda at newmajorityagenda.org.
Is the economy getting you down? Are you looking for something to keep the kids busy while you wait in that long unemployment line? Wacko Toys, makers of the Alvin Green for Senator action figure and the Lindsey Graham boomerang, present their newest innovation. It's the Pete Stark Pet Rock.
All right, kids. Check out what's new from Wacko Toys.
Oh, come on, Dad.
Man, this thing is heavy.
That's right. Your Pete Stark Pet Rock comes weighted down with decades of backwards socialist ideas and is cryogenically thickened to the exact mass of your favorite Democratic demagogue's skull. You'll have loads of fun as you sit your Pete Stark Pet Rock in a quiet corner and wait for the next 38 years as it grows dustier and denser with every passing election cycle. Plus, if you act in the next 22 and a half seconds, we'll even throw in the Pete Stark Smartass Answer Pack. The next time some concerned and informed constituent asks you a pesky question about border security or just what the limits of the federal government are, just whip out your pre-marked and indexed smartass answer cards to send back zingers like,
our borders are quite secure, thank you.
And
the federal government, yes, can do most anything in this country.
Yes, indeed. And as an added bonus, if your smartass answer pack doesn't send those contentious questioners scurrying for cover, your Pete Stark Pet Rock is dense enough to be considered a deadly weapon throughout the European Union, North Korea, the People's Republic of China, and the state of California. So be the first person on your block to get the Pete Stark Pet Rock.
Come on, kids. Let's try it out.
So what? It just sits there?
Mommy, Daddy forgot to take his medicine.
Warning, Since there are no limits to how far a Pete Stark pet rock will go, please make sure you are not in a glass house when throwing one. Wacko Toys not responsible for any physical injury resulting from responses to the Smartass Answer Pack. Used only in public under careful supervision and protection by United States Secret Service agents.
Alright, welcome back to the Sons of Liberty show here on Conservative Broadcast Media. I've still got one more ad block to play before the end of the hour, so this next segment is going to be rather quick, but, you know, the RNC convention power grab is just one of the curious coincidences and backroom wrangling. You know, I don't know if any of you have seen the video of the teleprompter at the RNC convention when they were voting on the rule change. They had a voice vote, yeas and nays, and the teleprompter that John Boehner was reading from before he slammed the gavel down and adopted the rule change was the rule change basically essentially allowing the RNC to change the rules anytime they want to without a vote of the popular convention delegates. The teleprompter actually said, let me see if I can find it, yeah, all those opposed say no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. And so Boehner was just reading the teleprompter. No matter what the voice vote said, the ayes were going to have it. And that is just one of the shenanigans, again, that I'm talking about here. You know, we've got this big brouhaha going on over the Boehner purge this past week, and 4 conservatives being kicked off of committees, and yada yada yada. Again, this is one of a long train of abuses from the modern progressive GOP. There's also the curious case of Cantor campaign contributions. I love alliteration, and that's what I call it. Where Eric Cantor was basically picking sides in primaries. And this happened also with Boehner and McCarthy and a couple other of the members of the top echelon in the GOP establishment in D.C. Or the manufactured Murdoch and Mandel malaise. Yes, Richard Murdoch and Josh Mandel, 2 Senate candidates that lost their elections in Indiana and Ohio respectively. There was a lot going on behind the scenes, folks, that the general public does not know about. The Republicans were sort of pulling punches in those races. Richard Murdoch, for example, defeated Dick Lugar, if you remember, in the primary, a 30-some-year senator from Indiana who didn't live in Indiana. So there was a lot of upset over that, including one of Lugar's main backers financially actually giving money to the Democrat in that case. Josh Mandel was not given anywhere near the platform he should have had as the opponent to Sherrod Brown in Ohio there. We also had the Aiken angle, which I mentioned briefly earlier, the whole Todd Aiken deal. The Bachmann backstab, where Michelle Bachmann was in a very close race against a multi-millionaire self-funding Democrat and won by about 1,500 votes without a penny from the RNC or the NRCC. There's also the Christie keynote, which I mentioned, talking about compromising with Democrats throughout. Then there was also, of course, the Romney-Ryan rope-a-dope. Yes, it was a rope-a-dope, folks. You look into the backgrounds and policy positions of Romney and Ryan. I know Ryan is the conservative darling, whatever, look into some of his votes, and the one that burns me up the most was the AIG bonus clawback. Remember this, in early 2009, AIG gave bonuses to their executives and, frankly, most of their employees. These bonuses were mandated under the contract that was negotiated by the federal government because of AIG getting TARP funds. So these bonuses were mandated to AIG employees. Congress decides, since there's such an outrage over this couple $100 million, Congress decides to vote into effect a 95% tax on those bonuses. This is clearly unconstitutional. Do I need to pull it out and read it? Maybe I should. Article 1, Section 9, I believe. It may be in 8. If I can find it here. Bear with me for a moment. Yes, Article 1, Section 9. No bill of attainder or ex post facto law shall be passed. Pretty clear. What is a bill of attainder? A bill of attainder is basically a law that is passed that only affects a particular segment of the population. Well, let me see. Are 310 million people in this country employed by AIG? No. In fact, the number is significantly smaller than that, isn't it? So that would fit the dictionary definition of bill of attainder, wouldn't it? This 95% tax. Also, an ex post facto law. What is ex post facto? That means after the fact. A retroactive bill. This 95% tax was on bonuses that had already been paid out. Therefore, a tax after the fact on a particular portion of the population. This is a bill of attainder and an ex post facto law. It was passed by Congress and the Senate and signed by the President. So, what does that have to do with Paul Ryan? Well, he voted for it. Clear violation of the Constitution. Stark terms in the Constitution, laid out very clearly, and he voted willfully against it. There was no pressure at the time for him to vote against it. Many Republicans did not vote for it. There was no pressure for him to vote for it. And yet he did anyway. Because, well, we have to be compassionate conservatives, don't we? Not if it means going against the Constitution. Anyway, far be it from me, with all of these coincidences here, far be it from me to equate correlation to causation, but the preceding cases should lend themselves to a certain level of clarity. If a pattern has not emerged for you by now, the only explanation left is willful ignorance, and I could point out 24 more curious coincidences just off the top of my head. For example, the piling on that the GOP has done to the detriment of Michelle Bachmann for a very long time, piling on Herman Cain in the presidential campaign. Well, a lot of other things that are pretty curious that I'm in the process of tracking down regarding Florida redistricting. But before concluding this little bit of the show and playing the next ad block, I promised a brief explanation of why these establishment types aim to steer the GOP away from first principles and the Republican creed. And I wish this explanation entailed an unveiling of some kind of a shocking revelation, but it doesn't. The fact of the matter is, we can blame an ancient culprit: lust for power fueled by pride. human nature's basest impulse and the most difficult to place under the strictures of self-control. Just as the object of starting a small business is to grow it into a larger one,